Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode on the Cerebral Cricketer podcast. Today, we're very, very special guest on the show. We have Shadley van Schalkwyk, who's a seasoned all-rounder with 97 first-class matches, 239 wickets, plus 161 wickets in 124 List A games. After a long domestic career in South Africa, sorry, this again. SA, South Australia, because I'm based in Australia, we always say that word as opposed to South Africa, so we're used to that. So he's gone on to represent the USA on the international stage and was the third highest wicket taker in the recently concluded T20 World Cup. So thank you for joining the show, Shadley.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love the introduction. Always, always nice to hear it, but thanks, appreciate it. And apologies
Um,
for always joining so late.
no, that's all good. I know things happen. I appreciate your time as well. I know you just actually played a game before you jumped on the show. So how was that? I think you're in Houston right now.
In Houston, yes, it's the Houston Open. So we won in the last over with a few wickets in hand. So it was sort of like a good game. We won, which is the nice thing. Good game though.
Okay, that's amazing. So is it like a tournament? Like what's the league and the competition you're
So
playing
it's
in?
it's a tournament. It sort of happens over a week. You play four league games and then sort through to semi-finals and finals. But there's a few of these tournaments that sort of happen in USA. It's very, I call it privatized. So it's a few team owners that get together, buy a side, and then enter the side into the competition that we're playing. And this is the Houston Open. So there's a few, probably about three or four, maybe five that happen throughout the USA, where you can literally be teammates for one day or one tournament, and the next tournament you can be in a different team. But it's incredible. A lot of cricket.
Yeah, it's amazing. We've seen a lot of growth in USA cricket over the last few years. So is this kind of adding to that to be able to, find potential talent within USA, and you're seeing the numbers of people participating just growing year by year?
I definitely think so. I think it's if I count it, there's probably counting the major league cricketers that has played or that is playing. There's probably like four or five of them that's in each team. So it's a good standard cricket. A lot of young guys or young guns that I call that are coming through, which is it's great to see actually.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I know you've had a very interesting journey. I know in the last few years it's been crazy ride for yourself within international cricket. So the aim of the show is to kind of get an idea of how you think about cricket, how you approach cricket, and mentally or strategically or otherwise. And I think a lot of that is also shaped by people's childhood. So I'm gonna kind of ask you and start from there in terms of your relationship to cricket growing up and what life was like growing up in South Africa in Cape Town. So what was that life like, and yeah, how did you get into cricket from a young age?
So for me, I think if I sort of chat to my friends, life in Cape Town was great. It's been absolutely amazing. Got a family that played a lot of sport. So dad played cricket, played rugby, probably excelled more in rugby, if I'm honest. So sister swam, did sport. One sister was SA gymnastics. Other one was a very good swimmer. Mom played netball. But I say this as I always say to people, I grew up on the other side of the railway line. If I think people in Cape Town will understand it if I say it like that. It's it's sort of an area, to sum it up, that I wouldn't jog in the area or go for a night or not an afternoon run just because you'll probably get robbed or you'll probably something could happen. So it's an area that I grew up in. Loved the place. Don't get me wrong. Made amazing friends and great people there. But at the same time, even today or when I was a little bit younger, growing up there, it was probably fine. But if I had a few friends over that was from the other side of the rail line, and they said, let's go for a run. I'd be, okay, cool, let's go for a run, but we need to jump in a car, drive somewhere because we're not going to run this side of the world because they're probably going to rob us. Especially if they don't know you guys. They're probably, growing up, it was a quiet area with regards to people knowing each other. So I think when I was young, I was always playing around in the streets and stuff like that, but it's not the area you would probably tell a tourist to go to. To be dead honest, you wouldn't tell a tourist to go to. Not a lot. I think a lot of people know it. To be fair, but Retreat is the area's name. A lot of sort of gang violence, but not as bad as sort of the media sees. So not as bad there. Call it the nicer side of that. But at the same time, wouldn't really spend the evenings outside too late, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And you said something really interesting in terms of when you talked about your sisters. Like, so you have two sisters. One of them was a swimmer, another one was in gymnastics as well. That's really interesting. Like, considering you said the environment at times that can be not as safe, and so you had to be extra vigilant. Growing up essentially. So, how did I guess your family get involved in so many different sports in that sense? Because one would be like, oh, gymnastics is so different to swimming, and then you got one sister doing one and the other doing the other. So how did that play out?
I think it was, we were always encouraged to do a lot of sport. I think the schools I went to specifically, my sisters went to different schools, but the schools I went to, sport was a big thing. It was almost the high school I went to was compulsory to play a winter and a summer sport. Juggling everything. I think I played 5 sports growing up. So it was rugby, cricket, a little bit of water polo, swimming, and I touched on sort of hockey and athletics, or track and field, whichever one you want to call it. But I mean, my two main sports were probably rugby and cricket, and luckily it was 2 different seasons. I think as I got older, for me, I was probably taking a train to practice most times till I got my learner's license, and then sort of a train back, if I could say that. But parents would always, if they were available, they would always drop us off. I can't remember a game that they weren't at. I think we were lucky with that regard, or a swim meet that they weren't at. They were always there, which was great. Always there supporting, whether it was me or my sisters or anyone. So that was the great part about it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And did you feel like, you said that you also played rugby and also did swimming. Were there aspects from rugby and swimming that you felt helped with your cricket at that age?
I think rugby definitely. A few things like being in a team environment. I think if I look back, it learns and teaches you how to communicate properly. I don't think we think of those things when we're younger. I think you just sort of fall into side and talk to everyone, not realizing that you make friends, lifelong friends, and you talk. But I think rugby, fitness wise, it helped. I was always fit enough to go from cricket season to rugby season to swimming season. So that helped. I think with agility also. I think with a lot of the kids, because I coach also, the agility aspect or the athlete aspect of the sport isn't there as well as it was in South Africa. So it's something you actually have to coach more here than you do in South Africa. South Africa, you just go, oh, you're going to play rugby, cool. Naturally uh, developed athleticism. But so I think that helped me. But it did sort of tie in with, and I say this now because it helped me at failing, if I guess. So you'd fail at rugby, you'd never win every single game at rugby, and then you'd have a fairly decent season at cricket, but you wouldn't fail have an amazing season. So I think the failures in rugby subconsciously helped me probably to deal with the failures in cricket.
Yeah, I think especially in cricket, it's tough in the sense that you have to deal with losses, and I mean, for you, like today, you'd won in the last over, but I can imagine for the opposition team how they would have felt. So like I think it's kind of that tough sport to deal with. So that's really interesting that you see that parallels with rugby as well. And when it comes to cricket specifically, what did you have any coach growing up, and what sort of pathway system were you involved in from a young age that allowed you to progress up the levels?
So we did have a coach. U13, sort of up to say 13 years old, it was called our maths teacher, Mr. Bond. So it wasn't technical coaching. It wasn't a coach that specifically knew anything about cricket. Maybe watched cricket and played cricket a little bit in his life, but nothing. It was get to practice twice a week, have nets, and then go home. That was it. There was nothing more to it. At my club, we had a guy we called Uncle Vaughan. He taught us brilliantly. And even then, he was just someone that also grew up playing the sport, wasn't a specific coach. My whole high school career, it was either a math teacher or a teacher that was free to take us for practice till first team. Our first team coach was very good. Almost became a professional golfer, so he knew a lot about the mental side, if I can say that, or what it takes to be a professional sportsman. And he was highly intelligent. He used his ways of abusing us, if I can say that in a nice way, to actually get the best out of us, and how we react to that. But if I'm honest, my technical coaching probably only came after I was 19 years old, 18 maybe. There was never a coach that was specifically assigned to us for cricket. It was cool. We've got practice from 3 to 5, or 3:30 to 5:30, and one of the teachers will be out now, and that was our training. That was genuine our training. It's completely different now.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. So when it comes to, because you said after 19 years of age you'd received your first technical coaching. So up until then, what sort of specific advice were you getting? I assume it's on the more mental side, potentially, or the maybe strategic side. And which sort of information from these different coaches you worked with stuck with you and you sort of took on board and shaped you to be the player you are today?
So a lot of the cricket language, I say from 19 onwards, was similar but also different. I say this because in Cape Town, the cricket language was go express yourself, free yourself up, like be say call it technically good enough to just go play and go do the cricket. Don't worry about the structure of how things go. Just go out and play. Like back yourself, be you. So those were the conversations there. And when I turned 20, I moved to Bloemfontein, and going from an English, call it the English setup, to an Afrikaans setup was completely different. It's the structures. This is what we are in 6 overs or 10 overs. This will be in 15. This 20. So it was completely structured now. Like oh, like it's completely different, completely different. So I say a few of the things that sort of stuck with me as a cricketer is to just believe in yourself, back yourself. Um, I think I was lucky enough to have amazing seniors ahead of me, that really gave back and helped me sort of come through the ranks. I think my first coach, sort of, if I can say, the first two coaches that really stuck it out and sort of believed or helped me a lot was a guy called Rashid Lewis, still in Cape Town, and then lucky enough I had Eric Simons also, immediately after school, if I could say that, and they sort of taught me the how to go about cricket, because we just used to play. I'll be honest, like school, used to have a little bit of structure. Cool, you must chase 200. Cool, go chase 200. That there wasn't a structure about it. Like just get there, find a way to get there, and then Eric Simon sort of showed us how to plan. Before that, we never played a lot of 4-day cricket or 3-day cricket, and he said no, this and that, and I remember one specific game we needed to chase 300 on, I think it was day 4. And I'm like, guys, it's 300. Like, it's chill. Just forget it. It's like, it's not that much. And then Eric's like, no, there's a lot more dynamic to it. And he actually sat me down. I was like, because we got the new ball at 80 overs, we have to be this, the wicket's worn down. And it never used to cross my mind, those things. So that's the beginning of when I want to say I started thinking more cricket, but we tried to think more cricket, but also be naive to the fact that no, you're selling yourself short here. We can actually just go do it. So it was for me trying to find the balance of the right structure in Cape Town, or finding a great structure in Cape Town to sort of going to Bloemfontein to having a lot of structure and not a lot of freedom to play how you wanted to. So trying to find the balance there, and also disagreeing with a few coaches in Bloemfontein, unfortunately.
No, I appreciate those insights, and within that process as well. Were you always kind of an all rounder? Did you always like lean towards batting versus bowling, or were you always kind of a bowler? Like, what was that situation for you as a
So
cricketer?
weirdly enough, I was actually a wicket keeper till I was 15 years old. So I was a keeper batter till I was 15. Always batted sort of top 5 throughout my whole life till I became a professional cricketer. Um, I was genuinely a wicket keeper. I could always bowl. It was just something you had to do in Cape Town. If you play cricket, you can do both. But I was a wicket keeper. One day I remember I played a first team game where I called up from the second team at Weinberg, and Richard Levy was the captain. And we sort of struggled a little bit. It's like, cool, Shadow, you bowl. And I was like, oh, cool. I've never bowled in a lot, like since my club days. And I was fortunate enough, I think I took 3 wickets there. And then that sort of said, okay, well, he's an all rounder now, so he bowls for us. He'll never keep again, and never picked up the gloves since then. But I think even when I made my first class debut, I batted at 5, I think. And that season I averaged, I think it was just over 30 or mid 30s, if I remember correctly. So I was always an genuine all rounder. And then the next season, got a new coach, and the coach like, cool, Shadow, you're gonna bowl, and you bat 11. So like, oh, like what? Like, and sort of at that time, still young, don't oppose a new structure because I want to play professional cricket. So I stuck to it and batted 11 for a season, 11 and 10 for a season. Yes.
Yeah, and you mentioned your first class debut. I might actually jump to that. That was in season 2008, 2009. I think you're roughly, if I'm not mistaken, around 20 or 19 years of age when you made your debut then. And it's crazy because I was looking through the scorecard and he played in the same team alongside the likes of Dean Elgar, Riley Rousseau, Bota Dippenaar, very experienced cricketers. So maybe people might not be even aware that you were sort of playing with these high level cricketers from such a young age. So yeah, when you found out you're making your debut in first class, what was that experience like? What sort of work did you do in preparation for that moment? And yeah, it's like on the scorecard, like you said, it actually you're batting at number 6, so you were kind of top order batsman in that sense. So you're in the top 7, and obviously the roles changed over time. But yeah, what was that like? That during that time making your debut?
So preparation, it was very weird for me, if I can say that. Like preparation, I was lucky enough. Believe it or not, a week before that debut I made, I was playing for Western Province, um, and it happened so quickly. I played the game at Western Province. The the Monday, I found out I could move, and I got the contract from the Eagles at that time. The Tuesday, I was on a plane, landed. The Wednesday, I was on a bus. The Thursday, I made my debut for a different team. So it happened really quickly for me. Within, honestly, 7 days, you could say, of planning or thinking about it, from a different team to a new team to making a debut. So preparation, I was still in season with Western Province at that stage, and played the 1 day stuff. I wasn't playing any first class cricket with them, and they made my debut. The the coaches, one of the coaches for the Eagles at that time was my national academy coach, and he actually recommended me to for the Eagles to have a look at, and then made my debut for them, and that's sort of how it came about. Preparation wise was good, but I remember like walking into the change room first because Boeta Dippenaar was still playing for South Africa. I think Morne van Wyk was in and out of South Africa, and Dean Alga was, and Riley was. I knew Riley a little bit from school, so familiar, but didn't know each other. Um, so new guys, but was also very old school when I made my debut. Like it's nothing the same now. I walked into the change room, tried to greet the guys or on the bus, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And then sort of just turned their head. And those guys that sort of gave you the old school treatment, like, look, don't shake my hand. You're not needed. Like, I don't need to talk to you. They're some of my best friends today, which is is great. So it's completely different today, but preparation wise was I was lucky to be in cricket. Was lucky enough to be backed. I think Corey van Zyl was our coach at that time. He said, just do what you've been doing. Like, don't worry about us. And I think I think I was 20 at that stage, young and naive. You come from a South African under 19 setup, and I'll be honest, you feel like entitled to play somewhere where it's not the case. You're like, but I played South African 19, I must be playing here. And a little bit of young, dumb, ignorant, and arrogance at the same time. That was probably a mindset that changed completely after a season, or after making your debut, because it's just not how cricket works. And and so preparation wise, I think what helped me, I was like young and naive, so I backed myself. Like, it's like, cool, if the balls they hit it, if the balls are just bowl this or just do that. So I was young and naive in that regard. But I think it helped me with my debut game specifically. Um, but yes, preparation was very simple. Nets, train, keep fit, do the same things. Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing, and those are like incredible insights, especially when it comes to what you touched on. Like, you're not owed anything, even if someone played under 19s or whatever it might be. You still have to work in hard for your spot in any team that you are a part of. So you're not really owed anything. You always have to work, and that's a good mindset aspect to keep in mind for aspiring cricketers. And regarding like the sort of players you played with, like they're playing for South Africa at the time, or maybe thereabouts. What sort of learnings did you take from observing such players in training, like Dean Elgar, Riley Rousseau? Did anyone stand out for you at that age? And did you take
So,
anything on
so I
board?
think
Yep. Sorry.
no. So I think like on that, I think it was a mixture of both for me. So I think Morne van Wyk was a senior player that was brilliant with me, very much hands on, if I can say that. Like, look, instead of trying this, maybe you want to take that option or look at this option. So sort of opening my eyes up to thinking differently to for example, the Buta Dipana, which I think things maybe happened a little bit naturally for him. Like the level that he played at to playing franchise cricket was completely different. So things looked easier for him. Um, so the two conversations would be Buddha Dipana, which was great, was very structured and like do this, do that, get your elbow here. Maybe it looked to get onto off stump and those sort of things where Morne van Wyk was like, if you're batting leg stump, maybe try that scoring option that might work out for you better because you can show your stumps and this. So the conversations was different and I could grab from everything. I think from a player like Riley, it's something you try do and try learn what he does. But when I say this honestly, he's probably the most talented cricketer I've ever played with in my life. Like what he would do in the nets and what he would do in games. And I would sit there and like, but how do you do that? It's like, no, just do this and just put your feature and do that. I'm like, but how? Like I like just you explaining it like it's easy. It's like it is easy. And I mean, I remember things with Riley when we used to practice for 4-day cricket, and it just felt like you couldn't land a ball in a spot. When I say you need to pass point, then you'd hit the same ball past square leg, and the same ball past covers, and then you'd bowl him a bounce. It's like, oh, okay, you want to bowl bounces, and then you'd like back away, and you'd next bounce you'd flat bat at you. It's like don't bowl bounces here because then I'll hit straight back at you. I'm like, and just like freakish stuff like that. So just seeing how someone on the talent side of things, like just everything looked easy for him to chatting to a Buta Dipana, which was very structured, very. I had a lot of conversations with him because I think under 19, the quickest guy we faced was Greg Alexander, which was rapid at that stage. Um, but I spoke a lot about how do you play pace bowling, like how do you play guys that bowl 95 miles or 140, 145. And Buta Dipana was like, I played close to my body. I felt that because they gave you pace, it's easier to score. So if you play close to your body, you're good. Where Morne van Wyk could be like, no, he likes bat on ball, so you'd be able to score freer. So sort of trying to grab from both sides. I think Buta Dipana made me think a little bit more technically, where Morne van Wyk could free me up a little bit more. And then Dean taught me the grit behind it, like you're allowed to be 17 times in the game, just score runs. So that around Dean Alka was the character was unbelievable.
That's I think really good insights, because I think it highlights a deeper point that different players do it differently or see the game differently, and they all get success in in their own way, playing their own style and knowing what their strengths are. So when you get so much information and pick up so many things from different people, sometimes it's hard to compartmentalize and sort of condense it in a way where it suits like the individual, right? I think especially in this internet age, we're so bombarded with different kind of information that it's hard to distill what is good for us and what's not good for us. So like it seems like different players are very technical, and the way they see the game is very technical. Someone might be a lot more like just try to be free, relax, this and that, and others might be purely strategic. So the way of seeing the game varies. So how did you kind of take what you needed and distill it and not get overwhelmed with the information, especially being a relatively new in the team in your debut season?
So I think I had a coach that actually told me you're going to have hundreds of coaching throughout the lines, but you have to take what you value that slides in or slots in with your game and use that to better. Listen to the guys because there's going to be times where you're going to need to pull from that information. But whatever works for you, you're going to have to, at the end of the day, be your own coach with coaches around you. So I listened a lot. I was a little bit of a sponge, very introverted, so I'd listen a lot, sometimes not be able to ask a lot of questions. But when the senior players came, they gave a lot of information. I'd absorb, try it out for a few days, didn't work, throw it out the window completely. Or try it out for a few weeks, doesn't work for me, throw it out the window. And they were fine with that. It wasn't like, no, but my way is the right way. It was, okay, it doesn't work for you, no worries. We find a different way. And a lot of that messages came when I was younger. But at the same time, it was um, trying to still figure yourself out in your game and what your game actually is at the professional level. Because once I think with me, it was playing my first season was relatively the easiest season of my first class career or debut year because no one knew me. There was no video footage on me. There was no analyst that knew who Shadley was. So I got away with a lot because they had to suss me out. And by the time they suss me out, my overs are done, sort of. So that was the one. But the next season, the second and the third season, was probably the toughest seasons of my whole career. To be honest, it just didn't materialize the way I wanted to because once again, coming from a half decent season to the second year, thinking, okay, well, I've had a good season. I'm good now. I think I got this. And then to lose a lot of confidence, and then sort of ask yourself the question: do I actually belong here? Because these guys are unbelievable. And then sort of that belief battle and that belief in yourself battle starts coming to you. And I think my second and third season was the season. Second or third season was the season I actually lost my contract because of I had an okay season. In my view, I had an okay season enough to keep a contract, but not didn't set the world alight, if that made sense. So I understood completely where the CEO came from and said, we're not contacting you. But I think I fought a lot with the do I belong at this level? Am I good enough to play? Why can I not have the same success as I did last season? Like I've worked harder, I've done more. And so that was the questions in my second and third year that I was going through.
Well, those are really great insights into what you had to deal with. Especially, I think all players go through that whole mindset of, do they belong here? Are they good enough? And then on top of that, if you're losing your contract, that puts you in a sort of not just a sort of a self doubt kind of perspective, but also a financial one in that sense, where it's like, okay, now you have the stress of feeling like, okay, you might not feel like you're good enough for this level, but then on top of that, you're trying to figure out what's the next step for me. So how did you feel like you encountered that, and what did you do to get over that hurdle in that moment, in that situation?
I, I think and I still say this, the best lesson I've ever learned in cricket is losing my contract. And although it was the toughest lesson, it was the best lesson in the same breath because all of a sudden there was no contract. There wasn't, oh, I have to do this to be able to get a contract. I have to be able to hit these numbers because that became very outcome focused for me. Looking for a contract, can I get it to a contract? Oh, I want to get a full rookie contract. I want to get a full contract, and everything was contract in my mind, and not just do your job. Go play. You play this game because you love it. And I think when I lost my contract was probably the best thing in my career because since then I haven't played the game worrying about a contract or I want a contract. It's been like I genuinely love this game. If I lose all my contracts in the next day, I'm still going to play club cricket. It's not going to be yes, it does help because you want to build a life around it and you want to support your family and stuff. So that is definitely a financial element. But for me, when I lost my contract, was probably the best thing because I've gone, well, I don't have money to play with now anyway. So just go play like you played when you were a kid in the street and playing street cricket. And that's what happened the following season. And I think I had a very good season and was lucky enough to get a 2 year contract. And even then, I was like, oh, thanks for the contract. Like, it helped me financially, but it wasn't the be all and end all of my career. I managed to then play every game, can't say every game, most games with a smile on my face and enjoying the dirt and the arguments and the blood and the sweat and the tears. But having to be able to enjoy that because I found the love once again.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. It's kind of touching on the idea that we should really go back to what makes us love the game and do it for that reason, as opposed to, as you mentioned, like focusing on the outcome. Because sometimes outcomes aren't in your control, right? Like this, you could have an amazing season. Sometimes the contract, for whatever reason, doesn't work out. Because it's huge competition these days. A lot of people trying to get contracts and working hard, all that kind of stuff. So if we just focus on what makes us happy and be in the moment, stay present as possible, that's more likely to get to the outcome that we may not be chasing. It sort of comes to us. And I remember this quote that really stuck with me, and it went viral. Like Mike Hussey on, I think, Ravi Ashwin's podcast, he said something like, sometimes if you're trying to chase the butterfly, you won't be able to capture it. But then sometimes the butterfly, without you trying, just comes and sits on your shoulder. You know what I mean? So I think it's a really good analogy, and I try to use that in my day to day to be like, don't try to chase things in that way, in out of maybe desperation, even, because that's not something that you want to manifest in it. And from an energy perspective, from yourself, you want to be that ball of love and happiness, and try to do what you can and do the best you can, but also do something that you're passionate about, and then things will sort of fall into place without you having to chase for it. So is that something that you connect with? It seems like that's the
One
motto that you
hundred
try to
percent. I
live
think
by.
it's sort of a mantra throughout my last bit of my cricketing career after losing the contract. That's always been my mantra. Even the kids I coach now, they still make fun of me for it because I say process, and in America they say process. And like, guys, just trust the process. They're like, yes, coach, trust the process. So it's something I genuinely believe in, and whatever the result is or the outcome, it's like genuinely we can't control it. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's crazy. And sometimes, like, I know a lot of people have a certain outcome, and sometimes we might not get to that outcome, but then we might be a light for someone else's story. Like, I've heard so many players that are like, they'd really worked hard. Maybe they didn't get the contract, or maybe play at the level they wanted to play, but then for whatever reason, like, they ended up being a coach or being part of the cricket administration to some degree, and then they actually helped and shaped someone as a child to become the best version. They end up playing at a different level, and sometimes that's even more satisfying than
Mm.
yourself playing at that level that you might have aspired to when you were younger. So I don't know. I just think life's a journey in that sense, and we should just kind of. I know there's a lot of philosophies, when it comes to Chinese philosophy, Buddhism, philosophy, all that kind of philosophy. They talk about trying to, trust and let go, and not be so, holden to the way you want things. You want to just kind of let go and go with the flow, go with like the where the river is flowing. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
I think that's the way to try to live life to the best you can. I actually saw a quote recently floating around. It was like some Chinese philosophy quote. It was like, people are like, oh, if you blame someone else, you're not there. If you're blaming yourself, you're halfway there. But if you blame no one, you're already there.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I think that's really powerful to just. I think cricket in that way is, it kind of speaks to the life experiences. So is that, what else have you found when it comes to cricket teaching you about life? Because I'm sure that's the lessons you've, many aspects of life you've learned through playing cricket, right? Because it's not
I
an easy
think
sport, right?
it's not an easy sport. I mean, if you ask anyone, you'll fail more times than you're not. Um, I think probably if it's this way, for example, I think I've lost more games bowling at the death than I've actually ever won in my life. Um, but it's the ones that you win that gets recognized. So one thing that I'm sort of big on is learning from failures, or what later on the last 5 years, like, you never really lose, you only learn. And it's something I, when I was younger, I'd be like, no, we lost. We can learn from it, but we lost the game. And sort of later on, I started to understand, like, oh yes, you never really lose. It's just understanding what you can do better, and those things. So in life, cricket sort of helped me to deal with failures, helped me with communicating, helped me with, and not just communicating, having the awkward conversation, because I mean, we don't play cricket forever. So there's going to be a time where we're going to have to work and have a uncomfortable conversation with someone you don't want to have. I think cricket's taught me that. It's taught me how to hold other people accountable, not because it's coming from a bad spot. It's because I actually want you to be better. Like, that's why I'm telling you this. And where how they take it, so I always explain, like, if I hold you accountable before a tournament, it's because I care, because I know I've got a little bit of grace, so I know a little bit about how things happen a little bit later. So if I hold you accountable, it's not because I'm mad at you, it's because I actually want you to be better. So failure, accountability for myself and others, responsibility, um, taking the onus on you, not blaming others, and sort of just believing that you can make it regardless of what your background is, where you come from, what you do. So those things are. There's a lot of life lessons that has taught me.
Yeah, and I think it's easier said than done when you talk about self belief. What advice do you have when it comes to trying to build self belief in someone else? Because I feel like sometimes, like, is it something that you may have always had when you were younger, from a perspective of, from a nature perspective, like you were just born with it, or do you think that it's something that you honed over time? Because it's easier said than done, right? Like, oh, I'll have this self belief, and you can see some players that the way they play, it's like, oh, they have so much confidence in them, and some players just don't have that. And they struggle to find, positives about themselves, and I think it speaks to I guess people have all gone through different experiences in life and may psychologically or otherwise, and it's shaped them to think that way. But is that something you've sort of had naturally, or is it something you've honed? And what advice would you give to someone else when it comes to building that self belief?
I say I've always been positive. Like I think since I was a kid, there was never not a lot of negative. Even to this day, not a lot of negative thoughts run through my mind. I've always been call it probably on the hyper side of being positive, like believing probably a little bit too much. When guys like no, but that's kind of impossible. Like no, it's not like genuinely. So I've been that side of it, but it's also there has been times where I've had to go like, oh, like the self doubt has become there, but the team positivity and the team belief was always there. But the self belief does take a dip throughout this career. You go through one or two bad patches and like, what am I like? What am I doing here? Like, I don't know if I can score a run again. I don't know if I can take a wicket again. So those thoughts 100% creep in. I think it's crept in through probably every season that I've played, but it's something Alan Donald actually taught me quite amazingly. I think I was lucky enough to take a five in one of the games, and I bowled probably arguably some of the best balls I've bowled in my life. And Al pulled me aside, gave me a beer, and he's like, "Shadow, why do you think you bowled well?" And I sort of said, "No, I think this worked, that worked, this," and it's like, "Now write it down because you're gonna have a bad game down the line, or you can something's not gonna click." And if you write it down, you have something to look at and seeing if you're missing a check mark or if you're missing something, if you have a few checkpoints before you're bowling and you miss that, go back to your book. You're able to read it and see like, oh, I've missed that, I've missed that. So it's something I firmly believe in um, with that regard. But it's the doubts 100% creeping. I think as you get older, I think since I've had a daughter, it's sort of gone away a lot more because now it's all of a sudden like, oh, it's just cricket. There's more to life than chasing a leather ball around days in the sun. So that sort of freed me up a lot more. And it sort of got to a stage of my career specifically of like, the question was always, what if? And I've got like, but what if it works out? What if you're able to hit this next ball for six and you win the game? What if you're able to actually be on the other side of the coin, the positive side of the coin? And it's something I've lived by the last few years. I think I've a lot of people probably get irritated with me saying like, but you can't be this positive. I'm like, but I genuinely am. It's, it's something I've always been in my life, and it's something I thrive on. But that self belief does creep in. Learning to believe does sort of have its self doubt. I think I had a coach at the time. I think the first time it was actually pointed out to me was by Nicky Boyer, and we had a mental coach at the same time where I think I was like 13 or 4 balls or something, and we ended up winning the game. I wasn't the man of the match. It was nothing to rave about. And there was another batter on, I think, 70 on the other side that won the game for us. And Baji sort of, Nicky Boyer mentioned it in the change of like, Shadow, don't underestimate what you've done there with those 4 balls. You've given us momentum, and that's the time I've realized like, oh, that's like I feel that, but I never get the and people I think stem on recognition, and to get recognized for something that you contributed a little bit to. That was quite nice from Nikki to take the time out to notice something like that, and it's something I make sure I don't miss on the scorecard ever because those things go unseen from coaches and from players, and when it shouldn't. And then at the same time, our mental guy, sort of sports psychologist, came in, everyone, and he said, Shadley, you're not always going to get that. That's nice when you get it. But know when you walk off the field that you're allowed to give yourself a tap on the back and go, well done. You gave it everything. You scored the 13 runs you needed to. And it's okay not to be recognized by others, but to give yourself a little bit of recognition and a little bit of like thank you at the end of the game because it doesn't always happen, which is just the nature of the beast, the sport we play. But to be able to sit down and be like, I'm actually happy with my performance. Although it's not the match-winning scorecard or the match-winning this. I can genuinely sit down and say there's nothing more I could have done, and it's literally just giving yourself a tap on the back because as cricketers, I think we only explore the one side. When we go badly, we're really down on ourselves. We're like, oh, this is. I mean, I've retired every single season for the last 10 years after a bad game. So, I mean, we really harsh on ourselves. But at the same time, I've also been in a space where things go well and it's not, for example, the best scorecard for you, but you've done well, half decently. You don't get the recognition, but deep inside, I've gone like, you know what, I've actually done everything I can. Give myself a pat on the back, and that sort of makes the struggling journey a little bit better, if I can say that.
I think, yeah, like you've shared so many incredible insights, like speaking to the point you're making about just giving yourself that recognition. I think we live in a world where sometimes we don't give ourselves that breathing room to be like, okay, we've done well here, where we'll always have that negative mindset, not just with life, but just on ourselves and everything we do, and it's not good enough. And I think even from not just even a psychological, that can even affect your physical health, having that kind of mental negativity or that self-hatred that kind of wears you down. Your body will take on that in some way, indirectly or otherwise, where we don't even realize, and it might manifest in anxiety. And you don't want to get to that. That might mean that we're clenching our jaws, or we're being anxious about things because we feel like we're not good enough and this and that. So like, I think as much as it can be detrimental in terms of from a mental standpoint, it does creep up in the health wise, and that's why, and it can even manifest as stress too, right? So like, basically the point is like, we should give ourselves grace every moment, because our thought patterns does affect our results in the end of the, like, what manifests, right? In the external, like
Very
it
true.
kind of flows back to the third, that mindset. It kind of speaks to your point as well, like just having that positive outlook, that positive mindset, giving yourself grace. And I think also adds to it, you talked about freeing yourself up. I thought that was a really good point, because sometimes, and I know everyone's had that point, they're so into their cricket, they're microanalyzing everything and thinking about it in such a way. And if they don't feel like they do well one game, then it's like the end of the world, because they didn't really perform to what they feel like is the standard of getting that 50 average and 20 bowling average or whatever it might be. And sometimes just not putting yourself in that position. And as you mentioned, like your family, when you think about things like, there's so many other aspects to life than just cricket. Sometimes that's very liberating, because like you approach the game for what it is, and you just stay in the moment more so. And you're also happy to do that because it's just one part of your life that you're trying to carve out. So I think, yeah, a lot of incredible insights you mentioned. I think we need more people are trying to, obviously, are getting aware of this sort of mental side, how to approach the game, and trying to implement it, not just within cricket, but also within their life as well. And speaking of which, I noticed that I think you've spoken about your faith. I think you're a devout Christian, so I'm just curious, like, how your faith also is when it comes to your sort of mindset and your outlook on life, how your faith plays a role in that as well.
I think that's probably the core part of how I look at things. For me, it's understanding that God has a bigger plan for you, and it's if you weren't here, you wouldn't have been here. If you, it's sort of understanding that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. Nowhere different. Whether you're stuck in a traffic jam in a car, whether you're able to play a World Cup game, whether you're able to play um, a tennis game, or whether it's raining and you're stuck in the rain, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. So it's something that sort of gives me a lot of calmness on the field, and that things are taken care of. You just have to go out and do the best you can, and whatever the result is, it's it's already been written by God, and I've been very fortunate to have a wife that also believes, and my daughter who we go to church with. So that has, for me, has been probably the center of everything, especially the last few years where I've grown stronger in it, and just understanding to go that at the end of the day, it's okay. Like, your time will come. There's a time for you to have it, and a few verses that I sort of go by, and at the right time, it will happen for you. I think that's Isaiah 60:11. It's one of the things I write on my batting gloves. But it's something for me that that just knows that there's bigger things in play. You exactly where you want to be. The result has already been taken care of. You've given everything you can, but also not slacking off and saying like, "Oh yes, God will do this for me." It's like, okay, I'm going to do my best to prepare, and it's something I learned in church a few months ago. It's like do the best you can and invite God to do the rest, and not expect God to do the rest, but you invite Him and say, "Look, I'm here. Use me, however you want. Whether I lose, whether I win, at the end of the day, I'm still going to say my prayers and thank you for giving me the opportunity to play cricket because, I mean, I've sat with people, whether it's in pubs, whether it's outside, and they're like, oh, I just wish I could play one professional game. And I've been blessed and fortunate enough in my life to have played for going on, I think it's 18 years now, 18 or 19 years or whichever it is. I've been really blessed to be able to do that. And it's something that keeps me grounded, that understanding that there's people's paths are completely different the way they get to professional cricket, and to appreciate what I've been able to do in 19 years.
That's really incredible. And I think when it comes to belief in God that you just mentioned, I'm talking about that trust in God, that's also liberating in the sense that you're letting go of the outcome, essentially. So, you're more likely to sort of stay in the moment. So there's aspects when it comes to, your faith and belief in God that will assist. And because cricket is such like, there's so many variables that can happen or occur that, things don't go your way. Like you can literally be bowling the best you've ever bowled, but you just don't get a wicket. Maybe, outside edges for boundaries are flying or whatever it might be. Right. So it's like, that's why I really enjoy cricket in that sense. Cause it's unlike any other sport. Like one ball, if you get out, you're out. You can't play for the rest of the day. You know what I mean? What kind of sport has that? You know what I mean? So I think when it comes to your faith and the way you approach it, it's liberating that sense. And speaking on the point I mentioned earlier about we have that. I think a lot of people have that inability to give themselves grace because of whatever they've experienced in their life, and just being like you've done what you can and you can move on. I think also that belief in God, because if that belief is that God created the universe and people, you're here for a reason. So there's value to you. There's value to every human. So I think that's a very powerful way to be like, self-empowering, where it's like, okay, look, I'm here for a reason. I'm just going to do the best I can, but I'm going to fulfill some divine plan in be me being existent. I think that's also very liberating in that sense, and something to take note as well. And I don't know if you had anything to add, because I know that we've spoken
No, that was
more
brilliant.
generally
Thank
about.
you. Thank you for asking that. I think you're the first person that's ever asked me that in my life, and I actually appreciate that. So thank you for being able to spot that and talk about it actually.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, because I know you're Christian, so I'm Muslim myself. So I think
Yes.
that parallel when it comes to belief in God is there. And so essentially, I love having this kind of conversation. I think it's part of understanding people, who they are and what makes them tick, essentially. And that's, I guess, the objective of the podcast as well. So I know I wanted to also ask about when it comes to you mentioned about failure and fear of failure and trusting the process, all that kind of stuff. I might actually jump to, because you've played, if I'm not mistaken, two World Cups, right? The first one in USA, and the recent one in India. And I mean, it's up to you how you kind of view your first one, but I think it's clear that the latest World Cup was, you've done such incredible performance that it was better than your first World Cup, right? So I'm just curious how you saw your first World Cup, what you took from it, because I think from yourself, I'm sure that you maybe reflected upon your first World Cup and thought, what can I do better? What can I approach? What can I do differently? And then you had so much immense success in the second World Cup. So what was that journey like? I know there's probably a lot more to it, because you had to you became part of the USA team,
Mm.
became part of the World Cup, and afterwards trained again, probably harder, better, faster, stronger, and then try to do the best you can for the recent World Cup, and got immense success and many accolades about your performance, especially in the first game against India. So tell us a bit about that journey, because that kind of relates to what you were talking about when it comes to bouncing back from failure, or results that didn't go your way, essentially.
So I think if I touch on the first World Cup, if I once I didn't feature much. I think I probably featured more with a bat than I did with a ball, which is not a bad thing and not a great thing. I think my economy was like 10.9, no wickets. Not really many chances to take a wicket. So that regard, it was Not a great World Cup, I'll be honest. I think by any standards that I set for myself, it wasn't great. I think what I was lucky maybe with is that my say underperformance was overshadowed by USA's great performance. By getting through to the Super 8. It's never been done before. What is happening in cricket, arguably one of the biggest upsets in the world. So a lot of those things overshadowed it, and I was lucky enough to be present in the moment with the team success. I've always said it throughout my whole career. If I get 5 ducks in a row and the team wins, I'm in a better space than actually worrying about my ducks because the team's winning. So that's the one part, and then I think I'll be honest with you. It's a weird conversation. I don't think I've told a lot of people this, but after the World Cup, I think it was probably 3 or 4 months afterwards, sat down with my wife and like I think I might be sort of maybe not wanting to go to the next World Cup. And she's like, Shelley, what have you got to lose? Like, give it a full go and don't look back. Rather do and turn over every stone you can, but give it a go. And if you don't go, we'll go there, but don't leave a stone unturned. And I think it was literally that was 9 o'clock the next morning, or 9 o'clock the evening. Sorry, and I was like, you know what, you're right. Let me do everything I can to the best that I can. And not a lot of people know this. So our daughter was still young. She wakes up at 7. So I was like, okay, for us to have the best day, I'll have to go to gym at 4 a.m. Get to gym 4 a.m. Train to 7 a.m. till Ziara wakes up, and then get to home to look after Ziara in the first morning for a bit, wake her up, spend some time with her, go train in the afternoon again while she naps, and then come back. So that was my routine for probably about a year, full on. With, if I'm dead honest, probably out of 360 days or 65 days, I was probably off for 30 of them, where I went and I just did everything I could. I've always worked hard, so it wasn't difficult for me. Before that, I've always loved my gym. I've loved my fitness. I hate running, but I have to do it. So I've loved all the process of training, gymming, running, cricket skills, nailing a Yorker, doing this. So I think for about a year, um, barring possibly maybe 30 days or to 50 days that are maybe missed out on a training day, that's including weekends. I really just gave it everything. Um, but I've been doing that in the past, just not maybe at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's more in the afternoon, into cricket, into coaching. So the sacrifice was a little bit different. I think if my wife didn't tell me, like, just give it a full go, you've still got a lot in you, and she could see it. Like, she reads me brilliantly, and I'm lucky in that regard. She's being able to go like, Shadow, like, I know, step up. You better in this, or Shadow, let's do this. Let's go all out. And I think that words of motivation motivated me in those before the second World Cup. I think it became my training became very specific to what I do then. I think deep inside, I still fight to be an all rounder, to be a top 7 batter, a top 6 batter. I still at my heart, but at the same time, I've gone like, okay, how am I making the World Cup squad? I'm a bowler that bats. So I was like, your bowling needs to become your gym program goes around your rotational power, your hips, your getting explosive power. So my whole gym training, everything, my whole dynamic of how I thought about cricket, how I trained specifically to my role changed completely. And that's how I think I prepared or gave myself the best preparation to go forward. Um, I was also fortunate enough, I think, with Major League leading up to the World Cup, I drew a lot of confidence from Bravo, just someone that was very close to the game. I remember going off the first game, picked up 3 wickets for like, I think it was 56 or something ridiculous like that. And I was like, oh, like I genuinely didn't feel like I bowled badly, but the score, the wicket column looked okay. But for me, it's always been about the economy, because then I know I'm in control of what I'm doing. And I sort of like, Bravo pulled me, so like, what's up? I was like, no, I don't fault the ball well economy. I don't like being it's like, did the ball go exactly where you wanted when you bowled? I'm like, yeah. It's like, it's a short boundary. It's like, yeah, I know that, but I still hold myself. It's like, don't worry about it. You're going to get hit. And he sort of gave me a little bit more freedom, and he just opened myself like you plan this way. Sometimes the ball goes over the field and not to the field like you want. And I drew a lot of confidence from that, and had off decent sort of major league leading up to the World Cup, and then minor league happened after that. I played for Thunderbolts, so that sort of gave me a lot of confidence into the Thunderbolts training. had a good campaign with the Thunderbolts, and then it was straight into sort of the USA setup, I guess. And it sort of snowballed from there. And going into this current or 2026 World Cup, there wasn't. I wanted to go to the World Cup. There was always this, I'm going to go to the World Cup. I really want to go. I want to be part of the 18-man training squad. Um, so leading into that, I initially was part of the training squad, the 18-man training squad. After that, I was part of the 15-man squad that sort of made the World Cup, but I was never going to start. I mean, Jesse was starting. I was the backup seamer, which I understood completely. But I've always prepared like I'm playing the next game or I'm playing that current game. I'll never leave a stone unturned because unfortunately injuries happened. I was in a spot where I understood that I wasn't probably going to play the World Cup, but I was okay with it. But don't give up. Don't stop training. Just don't get complacent because that was been told to you. And I think like heartbreakingly for Jesse, he messed up his shoulder with the dive that he took against New Zealand, and all of a sudden I was in with a chance, and I've gone, oh, like I'm in with a chance, but it wasn't, the moment wasn't too big because the preparation was good. The year and a half before that was unbelievable for me, training preparation wise, and not just before the World Cup. I think I was lucky enough to play in IL or train in IL. So I had a month leading up to the World Cup, where I work closely with the coaches, work closely with the batting coaches, very specific to what I do, talking a lot about plans, talking a lot about that, and then heading into the World Cup and knowing that I probably, or we probably as a USA cricket side had to be the side that does the most homework on players, because we've got one guy that bowls 140. The rest of us are between 125 and, if guys are lucky, 135. So we don't have a lot of pace, but we have to be thinking cricketers. And I thought to myself, well, I have to be a thinking cricketer. I've always wanted to be a thinking cricketer. So I have to study more with regards to knowing what I am, but also not overstudying and thinking the batters are far beyond because they do this and they do that. So I was very process driven, very specific to what I needed to do for the next specific game. Very like, okay, I need to bowl a wide Yorker when I can. I need to be able to bowl a slow ball away from both batters at a certain length on a certain wicket. If my cutters aren't gripping, I need to go knuckleball. So I sat down and in that whole cold year and a half and a 3 month span before World Cup, um, not not knowing that I was going to play the World Cup, going, okay, if I do need to play a game, I need to be prepared. I need to be fit enough. I need to be able to go for 4 games in a row because it's back to back. There's not a lot of rest between. So all of those things not played on my mind, but I prepared well enough for that. I sort of didn't leave a stone unturned. And I know I'm saying a lot here, but it sort of helped me in the end. It helped me to go, well, you've prepared. Just go out and play now. Like you've done everything you can. Whatever's going to happen. Like you said, coming back to my religion and being a Christian, is like, I've done everything I can. God, I'm here for you. Use me. If you can, if you'd like to, like, I'm still going to go for say a prayer. I'm still going to go on the field, say my prayers, and thank you for this opportunity. Whatever happens, happens. And I think with the preparation and being able to be freed up with that regard, I was lucky enough that some results went my way.
Yeah, that's amazing, incredible, and I think I'll touch on quite a few points that you mentioned. So I think in a general sense, however, it seems like you just kind of looked at yourself and were like, what can I exhaust myself in? And obviously, you focused on the fitness aspect and were consistent with that. And on top of that, it's like, what sort of role do I have, and what should I need to excel in? And then you sort of started thinking more strategically and analyzing more around batsmen's weaknesses and adjusting and in accordance to that and bowling in that way. I suspect where certain batsmen have certain weaknesses, and being that strategic cricketer as well, and then also being true to yourself, where it's like, okay, what's more likely my role going to be in the USA setup, and tailoring yourself in that direction. So I think those are amazing. That's amazing how you're able to kind of filter all that information and sort of distill it to what you need to work on and what made you, what you think will allow you to be the best version of yourself in that particular USA setup. And however, before I dive more into it, because I know you talked about fitness, all that kind of stuff, I also wanted to highlight a few interesting points you said about your wife that was very supportive, and also Bravo, who, during what you felt, even though you took 3 wickets, went for a few runs, he was still very optimistic and try to instill that into you, which actually plays into our part we mentioned about giving ourselves grace. So, would you be able to touch more on that, like how supportive your wife has been, and also various coaches along the way that's given you that helped you with your belief as well in yourself?
Yeah, so I'll be honest. I think my wife has seen me genuinely at my lowest and at my highest. So she knows exactly how I react to things, how I handle certain news, how I do things, how to motivate me, how to sort of like Shadi just calm down a bit, you know what I mean, or bring me back a little bit. It's the person I talk to literally about everything, anything and everything, and it's something that, like, when I say without her, there's no Shadley playing cricket. That's just the bottom line. Without Anjal, there's no Shadley playing cricket. Cricket have been out the window completely. What she's done for me to sacrifice. She had a great dancing career back in South Africa. For her to be able to go, oh, cool, let's take the risk, let's jump, and we see where we end up. If we don't end up, we come back. For her to be able to do that and sacrifice literally, I'll say, a lot of herself and her life for me to be able to try chase my dream. I'll forever be in debt and grateful for it. She holds me accountable, and I know it comes from a great place. She knows how to handle my ups and my downs. She's just been incredible for me. I'll be dead honest. Like I've said, without an Anzal, there's no Shadley playing cricket. And then I think I've had a lot of coaches. I think I've been very blessed to have incredible coaches along my career. Like I've had Alan Donald, Nicky Boyes, Eric Simons, Bravo, Otis Kipton. So I've had people that has genuinely been some of the greats of the game. Some of the guys when I was younger, like, and I said, like, that's Alan Donald. Like, even when he walked into our change room as a coach, like, I looked around, like, guys, like, that's Alan Donald. Like, do any of you know who he is? Like, that's Al. So that was like, and then to be able to have coached from being coached from then, and now I'm missing out on a lot. And Ray Jennings also was there. So I've had a great base of coaches that taught me different things. So to draw from them is incredible. I think what really helped me is that Bravo was very close to the game. So he just recently retired. I think the year before, and so he was still very close to the game. He understood exactly what happens in the game. He's literally, I think, his top five best T20 players that's ever played. So with that regard, he was very close in understanding of how the game works, what happens, how good the level of cricket is. And I sat there, I was like, you just like you know the points as an older player, but to have it sort of reaffirmed to you and like, oh, that's actually, yeah, makes sense. And he had a way with words, especially with me, to go, it's cool. Like, don't worry, you're good. Um, Coming up with different game plans. Can you do this? Why don't you try this? Do that. And me being, I think, wanting to learn from cricket. I think recently he's been a coach that has really helped me. I think even with like general stuff about cricket or negotiations or what should I do, coach, could I go to this tournament? He's like, no, yes. So it's someone I can just literally call, pick up the phone and send a voice note and say, coach, what do you think? And he's open, honest. So recently he's been the sort of guy I can go to and chat cricket because, and he says like this, like, we similar bowlers, me and you, Shadley. So this is what gave me success. Why don't you try this out? And I've been able to dive full out in and go, oh yeah, I'll happy to try that. Um, and so recently he's been great for me. I've had, like I've said, brilliant coaches throughout my career, and I've been very, very lucky.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I wanted to also touch on your gym work that you did specifically because you said it was tailored towards your bowling. So obviously, we can see your physique's in tip top shape. So, what sort of exact bowling gym work did you change to? And that helped you with your bowling? Because people talk about obviously the running aspect, but then obviously you want to get power through follow through, and then you want to, people want to bowl quicker. So like, there's all these mechanics, and so sometimes it can be hard for a bowler who's on the journey on their own, or any sort of club cricketer, to figure out, okay, what specific exercise should I be doing at the gym so that it will literally correlate to me bowling quicker during the game, or even just having that good mechanics to give myself the best opportunity. So, yeah, if you can give us some shed some light on that
So,
front as well.
so I did a personal training course during COVID. So COVID hit, and I sort of got stuck with our cricket. So I was like, I want to learn something, and I was sort of became a certified personal trainer. So just to understand the body more, firstly, and I mean it's not near as advanced. I'm allowed to work in the gym as a personal trainer. That's it. It's not as advanced as the SNCs that are in the cricket scene. So that was the start of it during COVID to get that out the way and understand my body more, how my body works, and then sort of doing a lot of research into what my body does biomechanically, how my action works and how my action operates, to where do guys create the most power from, how do guys create a lot of the power from, to having sitting down with baseball coaches to go like, how do you guys create power when you're hitting the ball? Why do you guys throw the ball a lot further than baseballers? Like, what's your technique? Because we get taught a different technique. So very specific to like when I throw a ball in, what should I look at? When I'm hitting the ball, where should my power come from? Because I bat lower down the order, I'm not going to get 35 balls to bat. So how do I go about it with I need to hit the ball out the ground first ball? And a lot of it comes with, they call it the coil and the speak, a lot about it. So understanding that part, and then also understanding that rotational power for me and hip and shoulder separation is extremely important in my action specifically, and in a lot of actions. So understanding that was the first part, and then getting training programs according to that. And I'll be honest, not just jumping on Instagram and saying, oh, that's a great workout, let's do that. Like actually seeing the workout, whether it be on Instagram, and touching base with a coach or a personal trainer or a SNC and go, do you think this can work for cricket? It looks good. It looks great. The guy's in serious shape. He's got 15 abs. So, I mean, it looks like it's working for him. And to them going like, no, that's absolutely not the case. Like, don't, that you taking yourself away from cricket to sort of crossing off some exercise, and ticking off some exercise, and understanding that because I'm older, my hips are not going to move as quick, but I have to be mobile enough to recover quick enough. And so understanding that the first part. And then once I understood that, going completely to, okay, my biggest thing is I play T20 cricket. It's explosive. So my 6 week off season, I'm going to try running long distance, but a lot of it, it's just to build endurance base. And then when it gets to sort of preseason, in season, that's sprint work. It's 200 meters, sort of sprinting 100 meters to 40 meters to 60 meters. But I've never run more than probably 3 kilometers at the stage in the last 2 years. So it was very much, okay, my hamstrings need to be, as touch wood now, but as strong as they can. So what's the best sprint to run to get strong hamstrings? And the guys are like, no, 400-meter sprinters. That's the hardest race to run because it puts your body constant. So I did a lot of 400-meter track running, and when I couldn't get the track, I'd go to on a treadmill, measure out the treadmill, and be like, okay, let's see how far I can go for 100 meters, have a 5 or 6 minute break, and go again. So hamstring strength, understanding my body, and then sort of going, let's go with this completely and trust the program. I think that, and it was nice for me because I discovered some new exercise, I learned some new things, and I was very happy to go about it differently.
And alongside with all the gym work and the effort you put in when it comes to bowling specific workouts, do you also do things such as, it could be yoga, breath work, or visualization, or sauna? Like, what sort of other aspects do you incorporate alongside with your gym work, or to complement it
So
as
I'll
well?
be honest, a lot of mobility. Um, I'm not very good at yoga, so I stayed away from it. I think Pilates is some of the toughest things I've done, so I've stayed away from that. I do my core work that I know, um, but mobility has been one of my big things. Being mobile enough to be able to do things, but also at the same time resting when I needed to rest. I think when I was younger, I used to go all out, all out, all out. But there's times I'm like, okay, today my body's extremely sore, without lying to myself and going, oh no, you sore, just rest. So understanding that part and not being lazy, but incorporating, I would say most things is probably just explosive power, mobility. I do like the sauna when it's off season because it feels great. But I feel in season for me, it dehydrated me a little bit more. Even if I had my water, even if I had my electrolytes, I felt like I still dehydrated the next day. So a lot of my sauna or steam room stuff, I would do off season. And when it's in season, unless I've got 2 days before the game, I don't sauna, I don't go into steam room, I don't do a lot of sitting still, sweating things, if I can say it like that. Just because I know my body's going to dehydrate. So that's me, for example, where I've got friends that love a sauna before the game and they hydrate and they feel good. Where for me, it just felt like the next day I was, even if I had 5 liters of water, I'd be like, no, I'm a little bit, I can feel I'm not up to where I should be. So off season, sauna, steam room, all of those things I like. But in season, I try to stay away from it and I stay more hydrated than I do normally.
And I'm going to circle back to the recent T20 World Cup. I know that you talked about your preparation. So I wanted to ask, like, before your game against India, that's probably one of the biggest games you might have been a part of. I know you would have played India in the previous World Cup, but, playing India at home must be an insane, experience. So tell us what your, thinking was in preparation for that game and what sort of I know that you talked a lot about the planning and thinking about the game a lot deeper. So I'm sure that you would have had certain plans to certain batsmen. So give us a little insight into how that looked like as well.
So we had a analyst, and we sort of lucky enough us as being IPL, we know the batters. They had a series against New Zealand in India before the World Cup, so we could watch the games and see where they're scoring. So homework wise, I knew I've got to off cutter to a left hander, so I can take it away. I knew that the Indian batters specifically loved the ball coming on because they could take on the boundaries fairly easily. They hit sixes quite comfortably. So I said, well, if they like pace on, I'm just not going to give them any pace on. They can fight for pace. I know, for example, Ishan Kishan, if there's not a lot of pace, he'll start running at you. Sorry. He'll start running at you as a batter. So I was like, okay, well, if he's going to run me, I'll bring the keeper up. I'm going to let go of my ego here. Um, in my heart, I believe I can still bowl 90 miles or 140, but I know I can't. So I was like, well, just drop your ego, bring the keeper up. So the homework and the studies was for me specifically, according to my role, I asked our analyst Sampath to go, Sampath, look, I don't bowl 140. So you can't show me videos of them getting out to bowlers on 140. I need where they struggle scoring to guys that bowl 125 to 133. I need that specific bowlers for me. Um, so I can't go according to that, man. So I need that for me because I don't bowl 140. So my training went very specific to, okay, I bowl 125, I do this and I do that. What bowlers around the world has had the most success against Ishan Kishan, Tilak Verma, all of those players? And then he literally gave me a list and I was like, okay, where's the dot balls? Where's the most balls that I'm comfortable with? And that's what I went with. And I sort of went according to my skills and what works for me at my pace, not at a guy that bowls 90 miles an hour because we're different players. So that was the homework I did and sort of the in-depth part. And I looked more at where do they get caught? Um, do they ever get bowled? What's the angle they work with? Does the keeper come up? Where do they struggle? Where do I get my most dot balls? So that's the angle I looked at because I don't think I was going to rush them for pace at all. So I was, okay, if they're going to get caught, they're going to get caught cover, caught deep mid, caught deep sweeper, and not point for me because I'm not quick enough for them to hit me past point. So all of those things was things I thought about specifically before the India game, and I set my fields accordingly. So none of the guys that I bowled to were behind square. They were all in front of square, every single one of them.
I think, yeah, like that was very insightful because literally you talked about Ishan Kishan. It's like you sort of had your plans. And I think one thing that really stuck out for me as well is that whole idea of ego, like putting that to the side, sort of looking at yourself. And I think that's been a consistent theme with how you've discussed things today on this podcast, where it's like, what are my best suited? What's my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And just being real with yourself. I think that's a really, I know, like, it sounds cliched, but it's easier said than done, right? Like sitting with yourself and being like, okay, admitting and being real. Like, because a lot of people will be like, they might not be able to hit those big sixes, but then they're always trying to chase that, trying to be that person that can hit sixes. But it's like, okay, but what is my strength? What are my weaknesses? That might not be my strength, but I can do things in other ways. And it seems like, for example, you mentioned about the Ishan Kishan example, like he literally is playing IPO and hit, was it a 90 of, more than a 200 strike rate literally the other day. And so like for you, it's like, okay, how can I plan in such a way where I can, encounter this challenge. And there's also a level of self belief that's required to be able to do that, right? And just knowing yourself
Yeah.
and being like, okay. And then obviously on top of that, what you've unpacked is the analysis, where it's like, I'll get the people, I'll get the stats, I'll do the footage and whatnot, and see what my options are on that front. So I think it's like all those combinations of like mental, strategic, that mindset and the temperament really factored in. And also, like, how did you feel after you got those wickets? And what sort of reception did you under? Because it was really went viral on social media after the game, with regards to your performance, and USA put up a really good fight in that sense. So unfortunately, the result didn't go your way. But how did the team feel as well? Because it's like you were in the game. The planning obviously has worked in that game. What you discussed, and unfortunately didn't get that win as well. So I'm sure that it would have done a lot of confidence, though. Being able to push such a world class team.
I think the feeling afterwards, I'll be honest, was like it was a weird feeling. I don't think I've ever felt that way in my career before. Before I sort of knew what would happen in the game, what happened, but it was so surreal that like a lot of people like chatted, no, you're the first person ever to take 3 wickets in the over against you. And I'm like, what? Like all these things got thrown at me, and I was like, what do you mean? Like, and I was so confused because although like deep down inside I knew I took the 4 wickets, it was still like this didn't happen. Like it's so surreal. Like surely this didn't happen. Like I must wake up tomorrow and go gym and get ready for the World Cup. And I think I'm only able to really reflect now on it. If I'm dead honest, like it was so weird for me. Um, I mean, I at that same time it was unbelievable because it was a lot of press conferences, a lot of people sort of speaking about it, and a lot of people like I was never the player that was in the headline before the World Cup. No one was like, oh, you need to watch out for Shadley. It was nothing like that for me, which was, I think, a blessing in disguise for me. Um, so I've just gone, the feeling afterwards, like, "Cool, that's amazing." But at the same time, I had a coach like, it's done now. Like, the game's done. You move on to the next one. You start studying for the next one because you must win the next one. So I tried to forget it very quickly. I think I was lucky in a way that I never, and a lot of people can see this, that I never watched the World Cup game, the whole of the World Cup. Because when I got back to the room, my daughter had to sleep. And when there was another game on, it was a sleep time. And when we put on the TV, it was Peppa Pig. There was no cricket, which I think was a blessing in disguise. The only reminders I had about was sometimes like messages that I got from friends. I tried to stay off social media. To be honest, I replied to a few, but I tried to stay off it completely because when I was younger, also, I never liked looking at the wickets tally and the board because for me personally, it felt like I started chasing wickets, and that happened to me in the past. Even with, I remember a while ago in South Africa when I was leading wicket taker, and like, oh, Shadley, you're leading. I was like, oh, shit. And I started, sorry, and I started chasing wickets, and I've gone like, oh, I can't, like, I've like, the guys don't tell me if I'm leading wicket. I don't want to know. Like, I just want to worry about bowling. And so I never followed it. The feeling afterwards, like if I look back now, it was probably amazing. But at the same time, I think now when I speak about it, like I actually really worked really hard for that, and it was nice to get a little bit of a carrot at the end, if I can say that. So that is the feeling now. But after the game, I genuinely just didn't know what was happening.
And in the next game, you said that you prepared for was against Pakistan. So both in India and against Pakistan, the games were thereabouts. And so, what sort of strategy did you go into when it comes to planning for the Pakistan batsmen, and what plans did you have for those particular batsmen?
So me personally, I think I was lucky. I roomed with Andries Gous, and he played PSL the year before, so he had a lot of local knowledge on the guys, along with our video analyst. So I actually just chatted him like, look, where does he score? What does he do? Where's his strength? Where has he got caught? And he's like, no, try do this, do that. He's a good batter, but we can get him out here. And I've gone brilliant. And I like picked his brain. So we'd go through the team analysis and bowl it to this guy, that guy. And silently, because we room before, we'd go for a coffee. I'm like, so what do you think about this? And like, no, not at your pace. Don't do this. Rather look at this option. And so I had a lot of clarity in what I was doing with regards to when I must do it, what's my role. and how I should go about it, because he was the wicketkeeper, so he saw exactly what's happening from the back. And I wasn't scared to go to the change room and go like, look guys, I'm thinking this, what do you think? And the bowling coach or the guys, they often see it a little bit better from the outside. They're like, no, try this, stay over, come around, do that. So whenever there was a break, I'd run to the dugout to go like, coach, bowling coach, Prasad, I was like, Prasad, what do you think? He's like, no, do this. Start, trust your plan, you're going well. And so I was always communicating with the dugout and back and with Josie. So that helped me, preparation wise. And so, I mean, I was the same. The homework went in exactly the same. At my pace, where do they get out? Why can I get them caught? What fielders should I have out? Should I have them behind? Should I have them in front? How do I go about it? And that was my chats, very specific to the pacer ball and to what I do. Very, very specific to that.
And even the next two games, you defeated Netherlands and defeated Namibia. So, how did you feel, and how did the team feel by the end of the World Cup in terms of your World Cup campaign? Because there were games against even India, Pakistan where you were pushing them, and if you had won one of them, then you would have been, I'm sure, in the next round as well. So, how did you make of your own performance and also the team's overall performance?
So, like on my own performance, I was very happy, because I never, as a cricketer, you dream of certain things at a higher level, and that you can compete well enough and sort of say know that you belong at that level, if I can say it like that, or have a performance that go like, okay, I've actually done something at this level, so I'm fairly content with it. Um, I'll be honest with you, like I was a little bit. I think everyone in our change room was a little bit disappointed, although we won 2 from 4. Like it's a half decent campaign. We still sat back and be like, we should have gone through here. We had an opportunity, 2 of the games, where we could have genuinely, if we, if things clicked early, and not a lot of people believe, besides probably the guys possibly in USA and in the change room at the time, we could have genuinely gone through the group unbeaten if we played the game with a little bit of luck on our side. We could have gone through unbeaten. People will probably criticize for me, but that's maybe me just believing again. So when they ask me, I'm like, we should have gone through unbeaten. We were unlucky with 2 dismissals, I think, against the India game. I think for 4 overs we slowed down against Pakistan. We set ourselves the perfect base, and sort of those things you can always go in hindsight. But a lot of us that are sitting back here is like, we should have actually just gone through. We know what we're capable of. We've done it before. We scored 200 against like sides in warm up games. We come off fresh runs, so we were in good mental space. But it wasn't to be. Personally, walking away from the World Cup, I don't think I could have asked for a better World Cup for myself personally. I think I was enjoyed every moment, but I was also present every moment. There was never a worry about the future or the past. I was just genuinely present every single ball. Even the ones I misfielded on the boundary, I was still present.
I know I've asked you a lot of questions. I'm gonna ask you a few more before we wrap up. Like, because you've had a very interesting career in terms of the different competitions and tournaments you've been a part of. I haven't touched on all of them, but I did have to touch on. I know the growth of MLC has been massive in the last few years as well. And even after the first World Cup you played in USA, there was a MLC tournament. And I think, from what I researched, you're part of a team with the likes of Jason Roy, Sunil Narayan, Shakib Al Hassan, David Miller as well. So, that's very, if you're always kind of playing or mingling with such players, I'm sure that rubs off on you. So I'm just curious how MLC, how it's been, how it's, helped you as a cricketer and what it's like playing alongside world-class players. Like, people talk about Sunil Narayan and Shakib Al Hassan, one of the best in the world. Obviously, David Miller, amazing what he does, world-class as well. So what sort of learnings have you taken with such players in your team?
I think you're always, for me personally, at my age, you're always willing to learn and looking to learn. Um, but it's sort of, personally for me, it's more reassurance that, look, I'm playing with the likes of these greats of the game and guys, arguably some of the best in the world currently. But I'm able to hold my own, if I can say that. So it's reassurance to go to myself like, cool, I'm here at this stage. I'm happy. I've worked hard to get here, and I'm sort of competing with some of the best, arguably the best in the world. But at the same time, keeping my feet grounded and knowing that you have to still work a lot harder. You're not exposed to as many training camps or as many competitions as the guys that are playing. But it's always nice to chat to them how they go about it because they play generally against the best cricketers in the world regularly. So for me, picking their brains, thinking what they're doing, not being having an ego about it, and I'm going to show this guy up, and I'm going to show nothing like that. It's just like cool. I can learn from you. If it's David Miller, Dave, one of the best at the death. Andre Russell, for example, like where do you find it difficult to score when you need to get 12 and over? Like how should I bowl to a guy that has a lot of power that can hit any ball for six? And then just picking the brains like that and understanding my role within regards to that. So that learning, but also trying to keep the belief that you're competing at this level, you up with some of the guys that are doing just as well that is playing around the world. So that belief is still there for me. I think that's the biggest takeaway, but also being a sponge and learning from the guys that have played over 3, 4, 500 T20 games around the world.
And also in regards to the World Cup, there's so many world class players playing in that World Cup. So did you get an opportunity to meet certain players from, let's just say, India or Pakistan team and get a chance to mingle with them, talk to them? Did you get that opportunity throughout the World Cup?
I'll be honest, not this World Cup because last World Cup, yes, because I mean I didn't do as well, so we could stay on the field. This World Cup a blessing in disguise, I guess. I got called for basically a press conference after almost the first two games, especially against India and Pakistan. So I wasn't able to chat to the guys straight after the game. A lot of them were in the change room by the time the press conference was done. So last World Cup, yes, chatted to a few guys, could pick their brains, but this World Cup, not as much as I would have liked to.
And who stood out for you from the ones that you did chat with?
I think the guys probably just, I'm thinking now, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. I mean, Pakistan, India, I didn't spend too much time with, but guys like Rula van der Merwe, for example, chatting to him after the game, because I mean, we played together in South Africa for a little bit in National Academy, played against each other a lot. So just seeing generally more of a catch up for me with guys that I've played with in the past. But I think also picking brains of associate nations because we play associate cricket at the moment. So just because they play longer than me, I've played a few years in associate cricket, but also just picking the brains how they go about it. Chatted to Justin Kemp quite a bit, just about how he's going about. He was with Namibia, and I was fortunate enough to again to chat to Dale Steyn and about plans and a little bit of bowling again. So I think if I'm thinking the two standout conversations is probably a Justin Kemp and a Dale Steyn, who are past players but still learn a lot from them.
And as well, there's one particular series I wanted to quickly touch on. This was before the first World Cup, and I'm of Bangladeshi descent. So it was USA versus Bangladesh. I think it was a three T20 series, and it was in USA. And I think you debuted before then. So you just played a few games for USA, and then USA had won the series 2-1. So that was actually caused some shockwaves around world cricket because it's like, okay, USA are actually defeating, a team like Bangladesh that's, playing and had some recent success as well. So, yeah, what was that experience like facing Bangladesh and defeating Bangladesh essentially in that series?
I think it was important for us as USA Cricket just to know that or to give ourselves we had the belief but reassure our belief. And we went 2-0 up in the series and sort of rested some players in the last game, if I can say that. And to be able to beat a full member nation is always good. I think coming from South Africa and having played with a lot of the guys that currently play for South Africa and against them, you always have a belief of beating any team in the world. Um, I think that just helped us massively with the confidence we needed going into that World Cup specifically. I think it was brilliant. Conditions were good. A little bit of wind, but I mean, other than that, it was unbelievable to gain the confidence from that series itself.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's why I asked the question because that would have just, boosted, I'm sure, like the team morale in that sense as well. And throughout your time also playing in South Africa, just to give, I guess, a better idea for the listeners, like you've played against the likes of Bavuma, Hashim Amla, Dumini, So many gun players, Herschel Gibbs, Graham Smith. So what's been your memorable moment like playing against these blokes, and things that you've sort of picked up along the way when it comes to playing? Because I'm sure that once you're playing against these players, you're like, okay, I've got to upskill, I've got to be better, and you sort of try to find ways, even though as great as they are, you try to, similar to how you approach your when it comes to your bowling plans in the recent World Cup. I'm sure you would have been also doing that that time. So what was that experience bowling to such world class test legends of the game?
I think as you speak about this, my dad's voice comes into my head, and he's like, and his words just show them, and it's literally like, just show them how good you are. And so it was one of those, like, it was a great battle, always a great battle, because you're playing against some of the greatest that has played for South Africa, and to be able to, I think it was once or twice, get their wicket firstly, and then at the same time compete with him, was unbelievable. So it was one of those that my biggest thing that I took from them is how they go about things, how differently they prepare, how their routines are compared to my routines. What can I learn from their routines? What gave them? How do they think about it? And chatting about those conversations was nice to me. But the things I pull from there is just competing, and sort of at the end of the day, my goal was for them to go out of the game and go like, that kid bowled today, like he didn't miss an area, so they could remember something about me. I think that was always my goal when playing against such great names. So I sort of, what they call, the kids say now, they're locked in. I sort of got there and I was like, okay, let's leave here and let them know how accurate you are, or what skill you have, but make it known today. And so that was my mindset. But the biggest learning is just how they go about the routines, and also at the same time, how easy some of them make it look. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I can imagine. And there's one particular tournament I want to ask you in season 2009, 2010. Many people might not be aware, but you actually played in the T20 Champions League. And that's something I think a lot of people talk about, because I think at the time it was like surreal, and people yearn to have, I don't know, an IPL team versus a Big Bash team nowadays, or it's, SA T20 team versus IPL team. That's like really cool to sort of think about, and they actually pulled that off in back then. And you'd actually, I think around that, you were around 21 years of age, if I'm not mistaken, and you're going to India to bowl to such world class players, and you actually versed New South Wales, which I'm actually from Sydney originally. I've only moved to
Okay.
Melbourne 3 years ago. So you played against the likes of Phil Hughes, David Warner, Simon Caddy, Steve Smith. So yeah, what was that like? Playing against such world class players at 21 years of age in India in the T20 Champions League.
I think if I look back now, firstly, it exposes my age a little bit, but it's completely fine. But I mean, it's been incredible. Like, Simon Cattage hasn't played for a while. Steve Smith's still playing. Brett Lee played that game. I remember bowled a ball that Ryan McLaren at, I think it was 151 or 153 or something like that during that tournament. So for a youngster at that stage, I remember standing next to, I think I was sort of lined up next to David Warner, and then Brett Lee was a little bit further down. But walking out the tunnel, I'm like, and genuinely, I was like, but that's Brett Lee. Like, does anyone else see Brett Lee as? This is, like, I was just in awe of a lot of the players that were either playing for Australia back then, and being the best in the world, to being on the same playing field. If I'm dead honest, just to be on the same field as them was, if I can be blatantly honest, just a privilege and an honor. And to playing an extremely hard game on the field with a lot of words being said, to genuinely getting asked to meet downstairs from Brett, like, oh, let's go chat. I'm like, what? I'm like, you don't even know who I am. Like, no one knows. And to know how hard they play the game on the field, and then just being some of the most incredible people off the field was great for me. I think that also is something that I learned in my career. Like, play the game hard, but when it's off the field, be you. Just be you. Don't be the person on the field that you are.
Yeah, definitely. And I know I've asked you so many questions. There's so many more I can ask. I might end up being like a 4 hour podcast. So I might just ask two, three quick questions before we wrap up. So, in terms of, the best bowler you've seen or you've trained with, who has impressed you the most, or maybe even the hardest bowler you've personally faced? And who's the best batsman you've seen? It could be a teammate or someone you played against where you're just like, oh, wow, like this guy is on a different level. And yeah, like who would be those for those two questions?
So bowler, I'll be honest, it was I still so youngish in my career. Craig Alexander, he bowled 90 miles and 95 miles an hour when he was coming through. But he bowled me a spell of bowling in first class cricket that I'll never forget. They got the ball to reverse, and I think he squared me up 12 out of 12 balls that I played. I didn't lay a bat on it, but when I said it was reversing ridiculously, I came in as a night watchman, and the ball was just going. And that's the easily the hardest spell of bowling I've ever faced in my life. Not necessarily the quickest, but the hardest. Batting wise, I've got a few to be honest. Recently, I sort of bowled to full salt in the nets at ILT20, and I felt like as a kid, I'll be honest, like I just didn't know where to bowl. It's it's some of the best batting that I've seen in the nets. I'm like, I don't know where to bowl. And I tried something and I actually had to chat to Narayan afterwards, like, look, what do I do? Like I just felt like every ball went for six. And it genuinely felt like that. Every single ball went for six. I think other guys I've sort of watched trainees or played with is Riley Rousseau's up there, 100%. Other guys fortunate enough to watch him is AB. When he was practicing for the Proteas, they had a sidearmer throwing it at like 100 miles an hour. It looked from the side. And it's not from 22, it was from like 20 yards. And he's blocked, he's defended, and about 3 minutes later, he's gone like, okay, guys, you've had your fun, it's my turn now. And I'm like, and I said, like, what? What do you mean? They're just throwing 100 miles and you're defending it? And he just started having a go. And I was like, how do you get this good? Like, he just made it look that easy. I've genuinely never seen something like that in my life since then.
That's incredible, and I appreciate your time and coming on the show and sharing so many gems about your experiences, your career and your performance as well. And did you have any final thoughts you want to share before we wrap up the podcast?
No, I just want to say thanks for having me. Thanks for the questions and insight. I enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. Thanks so much.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, like I guess this podcast is a bit different where we want to get to, the crux of how you think and feel about the game. So really do appreciate your time and sharing so many, insights about your incredible career. And, we're willing to, I think the audience is always keen to see what you've, coming up in the next few years and, in terms of your performance, watching you and, hopefully inspiring the audience and listeners to be the best version of themselves as well. So, I appreciate all your time and yeah, sharing all those insights.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
So I'll just wrap it up there. So for our listeners, thank you for giving us your attention. If you have any questions or queries, feel free to reach out us on Gmail. So we're on the cerebralcricket@gmail.com. We're also on social media. You can find us on Instagram. We're on TikTok. And we're on YouTube as well. So make sure to subscribe to us. We're also on Spotify. We're on Apple iTunes. We're on Amazon Music. So from our special guest, Shadley, we wish you all the best. This is Tanzim signing off. Thank you very much.